Welcome. This is Pastor Dan. We're doing Spotlight again, and it feels like it's always a new month. We're starting over from scratch. We're not, but we have a new series, and maybe a good question, but the answers are a little more tricky. So I've been asked to do a month on the issue of the silence of God. And boy, have I wrestled with that also, like everyone else. What do you do when the prayers don't feel like they go higher than the ceiling? When you're not hearing anything, you're not getting what you would call answers to prayer, there's no miracles, there's no clear signs that God is, or God is around, or God is with you, and you doubts creep in to say, what if it's just not quite true? The old joke about the man with the telephone, he wanted to convince people that he was a busy lawyer, so he pretended to talk on the phone. And the guy said, "I'm here to hook up your telephone." Is that what we're doing? Is that we're pretending, but there's really silence on the other end? There's really no voice. People will say, "God told me," but when I ask them, exactly how did you hear? They don't mean that they heard something. So what do we do? And we have to wrestle with the question, what would be so wrong with a little encouragement from God? A little voice, a little whisper once in a while, just so we know that we're on track. I know you have those mileposts when you're driving, you have some sign, okay? If you're playing track and field or whatever, it feels good to have a little sign that you're still on track. What would be wrong with a little encouragement from God? We just want to be sure that we're not following a fraud. We're not believing in a Santa Claus. We're not following a crazy cult. We're not Jim Jones. We're not any of those things. This makes sense. This is real, and it's true, and we haven't bet on the wrong horse. Well, what do we know for sure? There is a God. We believe that for other reasons that we're not talking about today. And we believe that God communicates, that God speaks. As a famous book by Francis Schaeffer, He is there and He is not silent. But we also have to admit that almost no one we know has ever really heard a voice either. And there's been long silences from God. But we do believe that He wants to speak and that He does speak, but that we live in a lot of silence as far as God is concerned. So why? And we just have to just go to the easy answer, the clearest answer, I think the most powerful answer, is that God has to be very careful about not forcing belief. As one writer said, He must woo, He must win, but He must not overwhelm, He must not coerce, He must not be irrefutable, irresistible. And so He has to find a very careful balance. And we might not agree with that balance from our point of view. A little more, God, be okay with us. But God knows what He's doing, and He knows that if He starts showing up with voices, unmistakable voices. How did Abraham know that when God told him to go sacrifice his son, that was the voice of God? Well, Abraham had learned now over time the voice of God, but there's no slam dunk. There's no ID. There's no passwords that make it clear that was God. It's faith. And so God has had to find a way to find exactly that middle line where He gives us enough to help us believe, support for belief, but not too much to make us believe. So that everybody, if they just don't want to believe, there's room for that. I had a friend that thought that he had found inscriptions on rocks in Ararat, wherever Mount Ararat is, and those rocks and mountains. And he made a big article, 8 pages, with pictures of these rocks. I called every Old Testament scholar I knew. I said, no, it's just weathering on rocks. It's not a slam dunk. There isn't going to be a slam dunk. We haven't found Noah's Ark. We haven't found the Ark of the Covenant. We haven't found the cross. There are no absolutes, and we don't get to hear a voice because God has to hide in the shadows. God has to be careful. Enough to quietly support faith, but never enough to make us believe. It shows how committed God is to this idea of free choice, that we fall in love with Him and we have this relationship all by choice. It's the huge thing. It is the dominant thing. It is one of the first orders of things about God. So our whole series about the silence of God starts here. Hope you'll be with us next time. It's going to be an interesting series. I hope you'll like it, and I hope you'll stay with us. God bless. Thank you for watching Spotlight. We're so excited about this. We hope that you'll subscribe and so you'll get all of them. And please just forward it on to others and tell other people about it. And let's just see what kind of an audience we can get for these messages of Spotlight. God bless you.